Can you make something for her? I think you must know her size. Certainly. If I have time, I'll bring it out tomorrow. You can do it that fast? Unless something unexpected comes up, it shouldn't be a problem. Do you want to surprise her? Brad smiled before saying yes. Leave it in your buggy, and I'll find it. Cassidy laughed a little. He looked a bit like a small, mischievous boy just then. Brad didn't linger. Cassidy walked him to the door, and then stood on the boardwalk in front of her shop and watched him put his hat back on and head in the direction of his aunt's house. Brad's long legs covered the distance to Jeanette Fulbright's house. Jeanette was his mother's sister and lived in one of Token Creek's finest homes. She was a widow with more energy than 5 women and one of the most generous people Brad knew. Brad was in his aunt's yard when he realized his brother Trace was on the porch, meaning he'd just finished his own errands. Trace waited to go in until Brad joined him. Brad was older by 21 months, but they were often mistaken for twins. They were both tall, lean cowboys with dark hair, beautiful brown eyes, and mischievous smiles. They owned the Holden Ranch, a good-sized spread outside of town. "You get done at the livery?" Brad asked. "Yes. How's Cassie?" "Fine." "What did you need?" Trace asked. "Something for Meg." Brad frowned a little. "She's not sleeping much." Trace nodded, and the 2 men turned toward the door, not bothering to knock, but slipping inside to greet Heather, one of the 2 women who worked for Jeanette. "Well, boys," Heather said, smiling, a vase of flowers in her hands, "this is a nice surprise." "Hello, Heather," Trace greeted. "Is our mother up?" "She is, all settled on the porch. I'll tell your aunt you're here." Brad thanked her and then followed his brother to the large sun porch, technically a small conservatory, but now home to Brad and Trace's mother. 9 years earlier, Theda Holden had been severely beaten by her husband. Normally, Brad and Trace's father was not a drinker, but one Saturday night, Wes Holden came home very drunk and attacked his wife. The boys were still in their teens and woke to find their mother barely alive and their father hung over. It was obvious what had happened, and they had rushed her to town for help, leaving their father to fend for himself. It turned out to be the last day they saw him. By the time their mother had been seen to and made comfortable at her sister's, their father was gone from the ranch. Had she died, he would have been wanted for murder, but Theda clung to life for almost 2 weeks before seeming to make a full recovery, at least physically. What no one expected was the change in her mental state, the one that could be seen in her glazed-over eyes. Theda never soiled her clothing and would eat when fed, but Heather dressed her and saw to nearly everything. She didn't speak or show any interest in books or songs. Unless urged to do so, she never moved from her chair. Few could break through the stare that had become normal. Some days, having her son's visit seemed to agitate her, and they could not stay. This morning she was completely unaware of them, but the boys still sat down and spoke to her. "Meg was tired and decided not to come, but she'll probably see you next week," Brad told his mother, always talking as though she'd been a part of their life, when in fact he'd met Meg after his mother's attack, and she'd not been at the wedding. Brad added, "The baby is due in about 2 months, and Meg isn't feeling sick anymore." The brothers looked at each other. They were used to this, and although it was not what they wanted, they were both glad to see their mother. "We branded all day yesterday," Trace put in, his voice soft and deep. "The herd is growing strong, doing well." For a moment it looked as though she would turn to Trace, but she kept staring out the window. Trace, the brothers had figured out one day, sounded the most like their father, and that was not always a good thing. "Good morning." Jeanette appeared, hugging the nephews who were more like sons and bending to kiss her sister's cheek. "How are you, Theda?" she asked, as she always did. "It's a beautiful day." "How are you, Jeanette?" Trace asked. "Not working today?" "Since Cassie takes Wednesday afternoons off and I'm at the shop all day, I take Tuesdays off." "At that rate, you'll be a woman of leisure in no time," Trace teased, and Jeanette laughed. Jeanette's husband had been a very successful banker, and he'd left her in considerable comfort. Indeed, she still owned the bank. The part-time help she gave Cassidy with her sewing was not done for money, but to get